Alrighty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final draft stream of the 2022 draft. So we'll have to talk about this again. I'm Mike McDermott here with Wes Baier, James Attwood, and Spencer O'Gara for the AZ Snake Pit. Be recapping what happened in the 2022 draft now that we had the signing bonus figures, and just put a bow on this whole thing. So, any preliminary thoughts of how you thought the draft went now that we have the signing bonuses figured out?
I think despite the fact that there were some really big surprises on draft night, none of those surprises really came from Arizona. We pretty much did what we were supposed to do. We took Drew Jones when he was still on the board, and then we swung for high-end talent with the other two first night picks. I mean, one of them is going to be a big gamble. The other one, not so much. So they hedged their bets a little bit. Outside of that, I think it was overall a very successful draft.
Yeah, I agree with that. There really weren't any surprises on Arizona's end. You couldn't ask for much more out of this draft, honestly, from Arizona's perspective.
Anything, Spencer?
I commented on it before. Like, Sims wasn't my favorite of the injured pitchers, but I'm not really upset that we got him. And Melendez, he fills a need that we definitely need in the system and haven't had in a while. So even though I'm not thrilled with him, he wouldn't have been there by our next pick at 82. So again, I can't really fault them for taking either of those two guys. And if either one of them works out, I'll consider it a success. If neither does, we took a gamble and we lost. What more can you really ask for out of a draft? We're in a position where we can afford to do that, and I like that.
So looking at the team's day 2 selections, which pick stands out the most to you?
Day 2, probably Crisantes. I was a little bit surprised we were going with a high school bat that was highly rated so late in the draft. We did apparently wind up with enough to sign him, obviously, but that was almost their big high school reach. Instead of doing it at 11, they did it at 7.
Looking over the draft this morning, that's actually the name that stood out for me on day 2. It was a little bit of a reach with a high schooler, but local. Looking at him, he stands out to me as well. I mean, he's got good makeup. Could be someone who pans out, but other than that, I don't really. There's nothing that they did on day 2 that really surprised me.
He's definitely the one that stands out too. Most of the guys we picked, I think, are just organizational filler. None of them really excite me. One of them might come out of nowhere. That would be exciting. I don't know. I like the name Pintar, so I'll give him a shout out. But it's not like I like him best out of the picks. His name just stands out.
Yeah, I was going to say, Pintar was coming off a pretty good 2021 season, but missed all of 2022, which is why he fell all the way to the 5th round and signed for basically 316,000, 100,000 under. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Nate Savino because I actually had a look at Savino when he was in high school. Although I don't know if he was pitching the radar gun back then, but I had him at 93 to 95 with the fastball, slider, pretty good slider. So he's got. So worst case scenario, I would probably throw the Andrew Chafin comp for Savino. Although Savino's a little bit more leaner. A little bit taller, leaner.
More fit.
Yeah. So I think Savino has the best chance of hitting the major leagues of your day 2 guys. He's got, in my opinion, the floor of a left-handed special. Left-handed special is kind of like a Kyle Nelson, Andrew Chafin type pitcher, where the slider is his big pitch and enough fastballs to keep hitters off of it. But obviously, he's going to come through the system as a starter. Whether or not his fastball is up the muster will probably decide if he's a reliever or not.
I think pretty much anybody taken is going to at least be developed as a starter until they prove they don't have the stamina to do it. There's no reason to not develop them and get their innings up and get them more exposure. And hey, if they can stick at it, great. If not, then it's really easy to scale back, but it's much more difficult to stretch them out. So
I believe the whole lot is developing them as starters to begin with. Like James said, if they fail, okay, they can become a reliever. But if they fail as a reliever, there's nowhere for them to go.
Yeah, I was gonna say of the day 2 starter arms, I was gonna say Dylan Wright's probably the biggest projection to a starter. He was a college reliever that basically got picked because he was having a outstanding Cape season. Basically, that's the information I gleaned from him. Obviously, he seems like an obvious bullpen candidate.
coming out of Alabama, they're going to give him plenty of opportunity to start too, though.
Yeah, you don't give someone $565,000 and not try to develop him as a starter.
I think some teams would, like, not just monetarily. Obviously, teams with a lot more money are willing to do that. But I mean, that's just essentially paying someone league minimum for a whole year. So for a draft guy, that's not too bad to get a good reliever. You don't necessarily do it in the 4th round, but
Right.
I was going to say, if you compare the signing bonus Savino and Ray got, that's below what's going to be league average next year, league minimum next year.
no, didn't Savino get 700,000?
Yeah, I thought the league minimum was going to be bumped up to 700,000 next year.
Oh, you're right. Sorry, you're right. New CBA.
Yep. New CBA, all of the minimums are going up. Not as much as they probably should have, but that's a different story.
Well, I mean, at least they're not getting completely shafted. That's good news. So yeah, off the cuff question: which pre-arb player gets the biggest makes the most money this year? The D-backs.
Or
Pre-arb.
Varsho? Maybe Thomas? Gotta be one of them, right? Because Gallen's arbitration available or eligible now. Smith will be arbitration eligible.
No, Gallen is pre-arb this year. This is his last pre-arbitration season. So he'll
We
qualify.
had him for 4 more years, and he had 4 years of arbitration.
20, 21, 22.
Started 2019.
Yeah, but he didn't gain the full year.
Okay, then it'll be Gallen.
And then, yeah.
It'll be Gallen.
If they used advanced stats, and I would say Josh Rojas, but they don't. But,
Rojas.
Rojas would be if you looked at OPS plus, Josh Rojas for sure. But they only see the 6 home runs and the sloppy third base defense. But then again, he's got a high WAR count.
He'll get his league minimum just like Varsho, and that'll be it.
I don't know. I was gonna say, I think Varsho and Rojas will get that pre-arbitration bonus pool, a decent chunk out of it, since both of them are on pace for above 2 WAR.
Yeah. Technically, the
Varsho's
team
on
can
pace
choose
for
to pay
3.
them anything more than league minimum, but I don't know that they really will. They'll probably give them some small amount and be like, "See, here you go, more money."
Not sure where West went on to, but we're gonna move on to day 3. Obviously, their big day 3 signing was Spencer Geesting in the 11th round out of the UNC Charlotte, draft eligible sophomore that got $400,000, which is $275,000 over the $125 figure that they could give before it counted towards the bonus pool. So do you think with the 4 high school guys they didn't sign, do you think that was a missed opportunity perhaps to add more talent, or was it a case where just the numbers didn't work out?
With the new signing rules regarding talent that goes to the combine and submits to physicals, which was just over 300 attendees, I think that the money just really wasn't there once Drew Jones fell to the Diamondbacks. Drew Jones was going to get damn near slot, and it turns out he got full slot. He was going to come close enough to requiring full freight that there wasn't going to be any substantial savings there. And that's usually where teams are getting the lion's share of their bonus pool savings is, we went ahead and gave this guy all the money he wanted, and we still have $2.5 to $3 million left over. Great. Well,
yeah, there wasn't a lot of that.
That wasn't the case this year. We took the best guy on the board, and the best guy on the board wanted the money for being the best guy on the board. You pay that.
By the way,
that meant that there was not going to be $3 million left over to throw at a high schooler in round 12 or whatever. And because Sims and Melendez both participated in the combine, they had guaranteed minimums as well. Melendez got what, 1.4?
Yeah, Melendez got
that came out to like $32,000 or $36,000 over the bare minimum they were allowed to offer him anyway. So whoever they took with that selection, unless they took somebody that was going to be a reach of epic proportions, you're not taking somebody outside of the top 100 with the 43rd pick. And so they were going to be paying somebody
at least 1.4
million. So there wasn't a whole lot of they got savings there. I mean, they saved over $400,000. That was still great. But it's not like they could have saved a lot. It's not like they could have played hardball anymore and saved a great deal more.
Yeah, just for everyone.
Sorry, go ahead, Michael.
I'll let you finish.
I was going to say, I don't think any of the four that we missed out on, I don't know them super well. They were deep picks that I was unfamiliar with on draft day, and what I've seen recently, like maybe they'll become first rounders if they come back into the draft in 2 to 3 years, but I'm not super upset that we didn't sign them. The only thing I would have potentially liked to do maybe is with that 43rd pick, maybe tried for Brock Porter and then tried to cut deals with non-combine guys for the rest of the first 10 rounds. But even then, it would have been pushing it on money, and I don't know that Brock Porter is worth that to me. So I think what we did is probably the best case scenario.
So if you replace Brock Porter with Landon Sims at 34, Porter ended up signing for more than double what Sims got. So you got, not double, sorry, 1.3 million, almost 1.4 million more than Sims got. So his signing bonus was what Sims and Melendez got combined. So it would have been. I don't think it would have been a viable draft strategy. Well, you would, because losing out on Geesting, obviously, you only saved $275,000. The money wasn't there when Jones agreed to 2 slot, because then you'd be down to $2 million for the rest of your draft.
And I think that's right. Like I said, I think that's very much where it all came down to, is that we took the biggest swing we possibly could at 1-2, and that dictated the way the rest of the draft had to go. I am honestly a little bit surprised that they were able to get Melendez at 43. Not entirely shocked, but he certainly wasn't going to be there much longer if they passed on him. And, like I said, he participated in the combine. He gave his physical. So he already had a floor that no one could go below. And, it's just a college award, the Golden Spikes, but it does help with leveraging in the negotiation. And, he has it. Say what you want about how he might be a bust first baseman DH because of his profile, but he's athletic enough to play left field. He has the arm to play right field. Not sure if he'll have the range or not, especially at the top level, but hell, we keep running Pavin Smith out there. But he put up real numbers, and he did it for more than just one season. And he did it for a major Division I school.
A team that's made it to back-to-back College World Series with him as their first baseman, I might add.
Yeah, so it's not like he was entirely devoid of some negotiating muscle. And, they gave him just a little hair over what the minimum was anyway. And I think it was just to give him a nice round number. I mean, take off $36,082 or something like that. And it's like, now you're just kind of being fickle. And that $36,000 was not going to be the difference between signing Gavin Turley and not.
It almost like he has a really jalopy of a car, and he was telling somebody that, and they overheard it. Like, we'll give you enough money for a brand new car. 36,000 is a very nice medium ground new car.
Yeah.
Well, if he reminds me of another college first baseman they drafted out of the state of Texas with a similar skill set, he'll be able to afford a lot of new cars. In the future.
I don't think he'll be Paulie, but that has a lot to do with the fact that Goldschmidt is not quite a generational player, but he's certainly a cream of the crop player of, he's one of the best first basemen in the last decade. Easily.
I was going to say, Paul
Century,
pretty
much.
The case where
you have Miggy and you have Pujols, but then the conversation jumps to Freeman and Goldie and Rizzo. So,
well,
Votto too.
How far we're going back, because then you also got guys like Frank Thomas, who spent quite a bit of the first half of his career at first base. And, he was an okay guy.
I honestly, like with Melendez, my ideal situation is if he can develop into what people were hoping Baier was going to be 4 months ago. Like all the talk around Baier being able to play first base and hitting was almost not a question for most people when we were discussing him at the major league level. And obviously he hasn't lived up to that. That's unfortunate. But if Melendez can be what we thought Baier was going to be, I would take that. And I'm not opposed to that from a second rounder. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I mean, you take that from a first rounder.
Yeah. The reality is, if Melendez can get 1,500 plate appearances at the major league level, he was a successful pick.
For those wondering, that's 2.5 years, basically.
I just wish they would switch the words in his nickname, the Hispanic Titanic. Yeah. I wish it would be the Titanic Hispanic.
Yeah. I kind of wish the same thing, but, it is what it is. If he had a problem with it, I'm pretty sure he would have put the kibosh on it. It's like whatever he wants, let the guy have it.
He makes the major leagues. I'll call him whatever he wants to be called.
If he hits like Goldie, his nickname is El Rey. As far as I'm concerned. Like I said, that maybe lightning strikes again, where you get a high makeup 1.5 tool player that works out. 1.5 makeup covers the rest of the deficiencies. I think Melendez is a better defender entering Pro Bowl than Goldschmidt right now, but obviously Goldschmidt
it's not like Melendez is a bad defender. I mean, he's not considered Gold Glove style, but I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's questions about his lateral range. Yeah. But he makes the plays he's supposed to. He's got good digging skills. He put those on display quite a bit during the World Series. He saved an awful lot over there. So, I mean, we're not talking about a guy who's an absolute hack with the glove that we're hoping to make a first baseman out of, kind of like they were with Baier and with a number of other first basemen who have worked their way through Arizona's system over the years. He's got a legitimate first baseman's ability to defend. So I'm not worried about that part as much as will he adjust once he faces nothing but elite pitching. I don't think he's going to be challenged really until he hits Amarillo. He might run into a little bit of a speed bump in Hillsborough, but I think he has enough plate discipline that his power will carry him through A+ and into Amarillo. It's in Amarillo where he's going to start facing those guys that have the 94 mile per hour sliders with 2300 spin revel.
Those don't exist in AA. Well,
Well,
maybe if you want to count Jack Leiter, but he got lit up yesterday.
Yeah, I was like, they don't exist in AA for long. Jack Leiter's not going to be in AA for long. Yesterday, notwithstanding.
Yeah, his 2 starts against the Diamondbacks AA, I feel like they've lit him up pretty bad.
And outside of that, he's actually been pretty good.
He's had a really great season, as he should. He's an excellent pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love it if the Diamondbacks had Jack Leiter would be the Diamondbacks' first or second best pitching prospect if we had him, but he's not ours.
Well, by law of transfers, he'd be number 2 because Walton outpitched him yesterday.
If I
take Leiter over Walston right now.
Yeah, who wouldn't? As good as Walston will likely turn out.
Yeah, it's like for one day, Walston looked a hell of a lot better than Leiter. But if you let me draft one or the other for my team, I'm taking Leiter.
So anyway, we get to. Trying to remember. Oh yeah. Anyone want to discuss the Drew Jones injury, or do you think that's been talked enough?
I think it's unfortunate. I think that a lot has been made of, well, Carroll had a shoulder injury and Lawler had a shoulder injury. And now here we are, one day into Drew Jones and he's had a shoulder injury. Shoulder injuries happen in baseball. It's one of the most common injuries there are in baseball. And it's unfortunate. I don't buy into this whole it's an organizational conditioning failure. It happened. He had clean medicals before he was signed. So it's not like it was something that got overlooked. It happened. It's unfortunate.
Strange pattern. I'm not the biggest fan of the fact that 3 of our last 4 first-round picks have needed a very similar surgery to each other, but it doesn't really bother me. And the fact that Lawler's and Jones have happened within like a week of them joining the organization, I don't think it's an organizational issue. I just think it's a freak accident. And like Carroll's was just on a backswing. Like it happens. It just happens. I think at this point it almost makes me feel good because we have such recent success with rehabbing it that our training department and development department knows what to do. And I do very seriously hope that they have him sit at home games like they did with Lawler and Carroll, because that seems to have helped them both. So,
yeah, just sit in games with the scouts and pops, and you'll learn a lot.
Yeah.
By the way, off-topic question: Drew Jones Hall of Fame, yay or nay?
I put him on my Hall of Fame ballots when I fill them out, but I understand why some people don't. It took me a long time to come around to Abreu. I think Abreu might be the most borderline candidate I have ever seen when you start to really drill down on him. But over time, I started to come around to, he's a Hall of Famer too. So, I mean, I got both those guys on my ballot, even though neither one of them is going to get the votes necessary.
I'd say Jones makes it, but I think he's a final ballot guy. I think he's going to get a big push in those 8, 9, and 10 years.
I was going to say, 10-year stretch, he was the best center fielder in baseball, and for me, that's a long enough run to say yes to the Hall of Fame. So from 1997 to 2006, he was easily the best center fielder in the game. Well, I don't know about easily, but certainly up there. I'm not sure who else he would throw up in that situation. So for me, that's enough of a resume.
It depends on the year, because there were some really good center fielders to play during that time. I mean, Lofton during his peak, Jim Edmonds, who kind of redefined what a center fielder was, and it went from being the speedster leadoff guy with gap power to being an actual home run threat. And who played elite defense. Rowan, another one like that. But Andrew Jones was playing better defense than almost any of them for the entire time. And he had some significant pop if he actually made contact, which was his bigger problem.
I mean, we're still talking about. I'll look up his numbers real quick. Clackety clack clack clack. All right, so if we look at OPS plus for Andrew Jones, 111, but obviously it's if we go to Atlanta, it's 114,
which is where he was far better.
And in Atlanta, he only had two full seasons under that 111 mark of all things. Well, actually, no, 3. If you look at his first full year and his last full year in Atlanta, where he was a below average hitter, he had that blip in 2001, obviously, but still plenty valuable. Still plenty valuable that season. 5 WAR, baseball reference WAR, when he was a below average hitter.
Yeah, playing elite defense at a premium defensive position will do that.
235 runs above average for his career. In Atlanta was 239. Playing almost exclusively center field for a decade.
Yeah.
It's the type of guy that you look at on a ballot and you're like, oh, other people will vote for him, until you start to realize that like he's been on there for so long and you're like, oh, yeah, he definitely should be in there. So I hope he makes it in eventually, because if he ends up at the I'm blanking on it right now. What's the Veterans Committee or
yeah, Veterans Committee will definitely put him in.
Veterans Committee or Modern Game Committee.
Right, but he
They'll put him in.
has to fight with all the other guys who have fallen off the ballot just to get to them. It's a much harder process. I think it would take a lot longer for him to get in that way. So I hope he makes it. He's like Helton. Helton deserves to be in the Hall as well, but he's going to be a late last half of his eligibility.
Let's say, how good a career would Helton would have had if he played somewhere else? I think he would have had a better career. Personally.
If he had played on some better teams, I think he'd have gotten more consideration. I think he would have also gotten more consideration if he wasn't playing in Coors, because despite how many times that Helton was a product of Coors Field has been dispelled, people still buy it every time they hear it.
Todd Helton's career OPS plus is what, in the 140s? 133. Although obviously he was putting up 160s before that back injury when he was a five-time consecutive All-Star in 2004. Then of course the back injury kind of just took whatever power was left from him.
It took his power, it took his ability to field. And he was a pretty broken player after that.
He'll do that to you.
So his best, he had 2 seasons of more than 4 WAR after 2004. I still remember MVP 05. If I threw anything in the strike zone, he would hit it a long way. Of course, this is peak. This is the end of his peak, Todd Helton.
Helton was the first player that made me love baseball, not just the Diamondbacks. Because I learned to love him as a person and as a player. And I was a really little kid, and my parents had to sit me down like, it's okay to like players that don't play for your favorite team. Like, they're role models too. So
Todd Helton's defensive numbers since 2006, in his last 2007-2013 were all in the green for runs above average at first base, if you're wondering how it affected his defense. All right, so we'll get back on topic here, back to the topic about who should be in the Hall of Fame, back to obviously we spent some time talking about this guy, but talk about I'm pretty sure we spent a lot of time talking about where Sims would go back on the draft. I'm trying
to. I was higher on Sims than most anybody else I know. If they wanted to develop Sims as a high leverage reliever, they could probably have him in the majors in September if they wanted to.
September
But
next year.
not this year.
Yeah,
I
Tommy
would think.
John.
I thought he had Tommy John in March.
Well, yeah, that's true. I forgot it was that recent. But
So
yeah,
June next year.
yeah, they could get him into the bigs in very short order, but I don't think that's really
You're not spending $2 million.
that I think the plan is, like we discussed earlier, go ahead, develop him as a starter, and by the time he reaches AA, you're going to know if he can be stretched out or not, and if he can, great, you keep him stretched out, and he's going to be part of the next man up. If he can't be stretched out, well, AA is about 6 weeks away from being in the majors if they decide the second they decide to make him a full-time reliever.
It helps that 2023 is as much as a lost season as 2022 is. Like, it's not like I expect us to be in the wild card hunt really come summer 2023. If we are, that's great. If not, that's expected. So you have a year to a year and a half of leeway with him of like, let's see if you can be a starter. And if not, if 2024 truly is the opening of the window, develop into a high leverage reliever. Give him those early MLB shots.
I would say 2024 is opening reliever because that's when Walston, Ciccone, all their pitching prospects are supposed to filter in. Already have their first full year in the major leagues. It's most likely at least half, if not all of them, are coming up next year. Get their feet wet at the major league level, and then obviously in 24 we're anticipating Lawler getting called up that year at shortstop, and there's a small possibility that either Sims or Melendez could break in that year, although it would be ambitious to consider otherwise, but it is possible.
24?
Yeah, if everything goes well for Melendez
in 24.
If he shows he can. If he's putting up ridiculous plate discipline numbers in Hillsboro, he's gonna put up ridiculous home run totals in Amarillo and Reno. Like, kind of like what Leandro Cedeno's doing with Amarillo right now. Kind of ridiculous home run totals.
Melendez is a little better than Cedeno.
I was just putting up a reference for power numbers.
Yeah. But yeah, 2024 would be my target for Melendez unless injuries strike him. But I'd be a little surprised. He's a little older than the normal college draftee, right?
Yeah, he's a fourth year junior.
Yeah,
the draft incorrectly lists him as a senior. The University of Texas listed him as a redshirt junior. So he did have the option to go back if he wanted to. But nobody says no to 1.4 million when the alternative is taking a lot smaller bonus next year, even if you repeat.
Yeah, I don't see Melendez arriving before 2024, probably later in that season at best. Sims, it really is going to kind of depend on how long he sticks as a starter and how patient the organization is with that project. I mean, there are plenty of reasons to believe he can stick as a starter. There are also plenty of things you can point at that say, no, man, this guy's going to be a reliever. Well, the second they decide that, he's very close to MLB ready as is. He just has to be healthy.
Yeah, the numbers he put up at Mississippi State as their closer in 2021 was pretty ridiculous. What was 100 strikeouts in 56 innings or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
And the closers get a much, and that's
he has two legitimate 70 grade pitches and a 45 to 50 grade changeup. I mean, it's not like he's completely bereft of a third pitch, and he's going to have the opportunity to develop something else if the changeup doesn't work for him. I mean, if he's being stretched out, he'll have plenty of pitches to work on finding maybe a cutter or a curve instead,
or a sinker if you want to complement that slider.
Right. Yeah, a two-seam splitter to tunnel out of that slider would be ugly.
It'd be fun for us to watching all those overlay gifts from Pitching Ninja.
Yeah.
You already know Sims has quite a portfolio already from him before getting drafted.
Yeah, I'm not terribly worried about Sims. There are others that they could have possibly taken, like Prelip, but the Sims is the guy I think they were taking the big swing on. If he develops into a starter, he is the best starter that would have been available at that spot. If he doesn't develop into a starter, then he should still be a high leverage reliever. Prelip is probably going to be a better starter than most of the college arms, but there's also a big bust percentage with Prelip.
Yeah, he has pitched in 2 years basically.
And because he's only a starter right now, I mean, he doesn't have that standout repertoire like Sims does in terms of just put away stuff. You're looking at it taking Prelip the full 4 to 5 years to arrive in the majors. He's not going to pitch more than 100 innings for 2 more years.
That's probably why he fell quite far in the draft too. That kind of thinking probably did influence GMs to make that decision or not. Whereas you look at Sims will most likely next year be able to bounce back and get an acceptable workload of 75 innings probably, or is that probably pushing it?
It depends on when he comes back from this. I mean, if he's back and ready to pitch by opening day for the minors,
I'll be surprised. I'll be surprised.
He's probably not there, but if he is there, then yeah, 75 innings. If he doesn't come back till May, maybe June, because there really isn't a rush yet. It's not like the Diamondbacks are on the cusp and need to inject a left-handed reliever into the system, or excuse me, a right-handed reliever into the system. Then, maybe he only gets 45, 50 innings, but then he should be able to get to the 80 to 100 innings by year 2.
Interesting to see what kind
strikes me as an Arizona Fall League guy next year. Of see how much we can get out of him out of the 2023 minor league system for his year, and then tack on a little bit there at the end to see if we can get him ready. But that's if he's a reliever. If he's a starter, I don't think he goes to the Fall League.
That'd be it. That's similar boat to where Saccone was a year ago, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You guys think Melendez goes to the Fall League this winter?
Not this winter, but maybe next winter.
Yeah, I would go with next winter as well.
And that's only if he has an injury next year. Or if he has the full minor league season, I don't think so. Talking about a guy that probably only needs 1,000 plate appearances of evaluation before making the call of bringing him up to the big leagues or not. I think Goldschmidt had 900 plate appearances in the No, he had over 1,000. Oh, he had 1,200 actually. I forgot he played the full short league season in 09. Well, nope. D-backs have a pretty good idea if Melendez is ready in 2 years from now.
Yes, if he stays healthy, a healthy or a reasonable timeline for him is late 2024.
Right as Walker is on the way out.
I don't think the team is going to be in any hurry to move on from Walker.
Unless Melendez is tearing up Double-A. That would be the only reason they would move Walker in 24.
Even then, I don't know that they move him so much as give him the Goldie Overbay treatment where Walker gets to kind of teach Melendez the MLB ropes. And we brought Overbay back because we wanted to make sure that there was a safety net for Goldie. Turns out Goldie didn't need it.
I mean, he needed a little bit.
But that was why he was here, and he was actually very good at that role.
The there's one downside to that approach. It's they're both right-handed hitters. What made the Overbay insurance work is Overbay was left-handed, so
Yes.
you give Goldschmidt, you protect Goldschmidt a bit against the right-handed pitchers early on. Right-handed pitcher's not named Tim Lincecum, that is.
Walker strikes me as this offseason trade candidate. I think we'd have to be blown away to get rid of him, but somebody could try and buy low, and we could get more than we got offered a couple days ago at the deadline. Maybe it happens, but they would have to trust that Smith is ready to take first base or that Baier is. And I don't think
Or
that actually
Yerzy.
happens.
Although I think Yerzy
Sure.
is a DH type like Baier. A little bit more athletic, but same mold.
They like Walker's makeup entirely too much, and he is considered kind of like the glue in that clubhouse. So I just don't see him getting moved until either he reaches free agency or somebody like Melendez comes along and quite literally takes the job from him.
Kind of like Goldschmidt in
Sounds
2011.
Yeah.
Although it was like, although I think in the Goldschmidt case, it was like, well, everyone else sucks. We have nothing to lose at this. Well, we have a lot to lose, but not much to lose at the position.
Yeah, it was going to be Overbay and Goldie, and that was it.
I think they signed Overbay once Nady went down, but you knew Nady was pretty much out of
Nady.
playing time when Goldschmidt came up. Remember they had that Juan Miranda, Xavier Nady platoon in that year?
Yeah. Yeah, that didn't last long.
Wasn't a bad idea, but it didn't work out. Nady was okay against lefties, and Miranda just didn't hit. And then they tried Brandon Allen for a couple weeks, and then decided to trade him instead because Brad Ziegler was on the market, surprisingly for cheap. But
Okay.
that'll be a fun trade to revisit in the future, in my opinion. So anyway, we'll wrap it up with the 2023 draft. 2023 draft here. The Diamondbacks are currently at 47.58 with a 448 winning percentage. They would be picking 11th if the season were to end today. Do you believe the team will be in the lottery come 2023, or do you think they're going to just squeak out of it?
I suspect, given just how bad some of the bad teams are this year, the Diamondbacks are not going to be in the lottery, which means that this was their year to make the big splash. Once you're picking 10th, 11th, 14th, whatever, you're looking for whoever fell because you're not going to be lined up for a premium franchise changing talent unless you happen to get lucky or grab an injury guy. I mean, Walker Buehler was what?
24th.
24th? Yeah, 24th. But it was because the Dodgers are like, we've got money. We can afford to miss. We'll take this injured guy who, when he's not injured, is a hell of a pitcher. Turns out that was the right call. Every other team ahead of them had the opportunity to make that call, but they played it safer to avoid that injury. I think that's the only way the Diamondbacks are going to find a premium talent in the next draft is if they gamble on somebody who is probably injured or had a rough entry into the draft because they fell flat on their face in the College World Series or whatever, or in the Cape Cod League or something like that. Just because drafting 10th through 13th, they'll probably pick somewhere in that range, 10 to 13. There just isn't going to be elite talent.
Yeah. I was going to say
Even
for
11th, we have a chance at the lottery. You just get like the one shot, right? You get like the 1% instead of the 75%.
I think the number of games between us and the sixth worst team in the baseball you can count in one hand. But I still don't think the Diamondbacks finished last in their division this year.
No.
We have to remember the Colorado Rockies are much better at this than the Diamondbacks are at
sucking.
Yeah.
And honestly, this year, like the Giants are like unraveling in front of our eyes. So it wouldn't.
Yeah.
I don't think it happens, but it wouldn't really surprise me if we actually ended up in third.
And
Yeah,
I
that
could
wouldn't
see it
surprise me either.
happening. I could see it happening, especially if in the next week or so, the Giants decide to just call it a season and go with the developmental team for the rest of the. It would not be the first time the Giants have done that, not by a long shot. And if they go ahead and go with the developmental team over the last 35 games, 40 games, then I could see them dropping down to fifth and, or fourth, making the Diamondbacks third. But otherwise, I think we still finish ahead of Colorado. We'll still probably finish ahead of Boston.
I'm looking
around the Marlins, definitely ahead of the Nationals, probably ahead of the
Marlins
Pirates.
only have one more win than the Diamondbacks, but with the same number of losses.
Yeah, the
So
good
tied in
thing
the
for us
loss
is
column.
we're on an upward trajectory overall, and unfortunately, the Marlins are kind of plateaued.
Yeah,
at the
but
bottom.
the last 30 games of the Diamondbacks season is an absolutely brutal stretch of games.
Yeah. We get to decide who
Yeah.
wins the NL Central.
Yay!
Well, only by playing Milwaukee at the end of the season. D-backs play the Cardinals later this month. So yeah, I'm looking at
Who knows?
the list of
Milwaukee might
names for
suck by then.
2023. We could probably rule out Dylan Cruz, possibly Jacob and Max Clark for sure, in my opinion. Those two will probably be the
Those
top
two
two
are running the
bats.
top five.
They're gone.
And then Jacob Gonzalez is. You never know how the draft's going to go. Jacob Gonzalez could be a guy. Drops to 11th, no, but if the Diamondbacks are picking 7th, maybe. Although, if he has any ability to stick at shortstop, he's probably also a top 5 pick. We got to keep an eye out more on the pitchers because obviously there's a lot more volatility to their profile.
And I think next year we're going to start to see a slight return to normalcy, but I think it's going to be one more full season after that before we see pitchers entering the draft as healthy and prepared as they were pre-pandemic. The pitchers that entered this draft, obviously, with all the injuries and the shortened seasons, we're seeing the effects. Next season, the
college arms,
the most senior college arms are still ones that were impacted by COVID and were at programs impacted by COVID. So it's going to be even one more year beyond that before we're finally beyond COVID impact on the arms in the draft.
I'm just going to make one observation here. For the arms that are likely to go in the first round, since they're most likely college juniors, the impact might be a little bit less at the top.
Maybe.
Although obviously these guys had their high school season shut down the year before. So that would be where the impact. That's where the worry lies in when it comes to workload. But they've been working. They'll have 3 years.
I think next year you're going to see a lot of injured pitchers again. I think it's the
we
guy.
had quite a bit this year.
I know, and I think that's just going to continue. It might be fewer than it was in 2022, but if we do pick in that 11 to 15 range, it wouldn't surprise me to see us do the San Diego Padres of this year and try and take the next Dylan Lesko. Because you're still shooting high, but the guy's injured.
Yeah, Lesko was not going to go in the top 5 this year because there were so many good bats ahead of him.
Still
I
pretty
think
much
the
the
pitching,
consensus number 1 high school arm, though.
Well, I don't know about consensus. Brock Porter was rated higher, but that was because Porter was healthy coming out of high school versus.
That's the big thing is Porter was healthy. If Porter and Lesko are both healthy, I think Lesko probably with his ridiculous changeup
Goes 7 at lowest. Cade Horton is a second-round pick.
I think we'll see a bunch of injuries still because the COVID season will still be affecting the guys at that point. And my early hope, would be that we would be in a position to make that type of deal of like a guy who doesn't have to be the number 1 pitcher, whatever, 2, 3, 4, who makes it to us because he was injured. I'd be okay with that. That's like a Landon Sims pick this year, just at a higher pick.
I'm looking at, it's going to come down to Max Clark and Dylan Cruz for number 1 overall pick. Do you take security or you take upside? Because Clark is obviously a left-handed bat.
I don't worry about left-handed, right-handed nearly so much because these guys are still years away and plenty can change. And if a guy is absolutely destroying the ball, you'll find a place for his bat regardless of which, nobody worried about the fact that Big Papi was batting left-handed. Some other left-handed bat was going to get put on the bench if you needed to find balance. The same thing when I'm taking guys in the draft. I'm taking the best stand bat I can get my hands on, and I'll figure out how he plays when he's ready to play.
If we were to pick one again, I would go upside. I want ceiling.
If we're picking around 11, I'm probably swinging for the fences too.
So I'm gonna put. Okay, so one final question before we go. Top 10, top 20, or top 15 or top 20, where the Diamondbacks are picking next year. Make a call here.
Top 15.
I'll be stupid and say that we, with our 1% chance, make it into the lottery. I'll say top 10.
Yeah, I should have said lottery. 7 to 10 or 11 to 15 is the question.
I still take that lottery. I'll believe it until it can't happen.
I'm gonna say they pick 10th. So I'm gonna pick 7 to 10 range. So anyone have any final?
I'm at 10 to 12. I'm guessing right around 11.
So anyone have any final thoughts before we go?
No, I think we covered it between a couple last broadcasts and about 600 articles.
Some of the guys, but they're just kind of there. They're warm bodies at this point.
Yeah, so this will wrap up our commentary on the 2022 draft. We have 4 live streams, a preseason spring preview, as well as the post college and amateur season draft preview is the draft stream, and then also this recap. 2023 draft is next year. Obviously, we got a year to go. A lot of things will happen between now and then, but it'll be interesting to see where the Diamondbacks finish and who might be on the board, because obviously where they're picking, there's a lot of fluidity.
We'll have a better idea what the draft should look like for the Diamondbacks once November rolls around.
I would say June, but first step is November.
When does the lottery pick happen? Has that been announced?
They're trying to figure this out, right? They're figuring out as they go right now.
Yeah, that's true.
We'll be watching it, but only to make fun of the teams that got screwed by it. Obviously, no big market teams on there. Oh yeah, Washington. It's like Washington deserves the number 1 overall pick for how bad their season has gone.
They'll end up picking 7th.
Well, they can't pick 7th.
Yeah, they can. If they don't get chosen out the lottery. Yeah, but if they don't get one of the lottery spots, it's not likely.
Nationals are probably about... it's going to require more than one hand to count the number of games they're ahead of whoever's in 7th worth record. They are way past everyone. I think there are 3 teams that have a sub 400 record, and Washington obviously is the 33% winning percentage.
Yeah, it's really going to boil down to how the Diamondbacks can weather that difficult final 30 games. There's a great opportunity for the Dodgers to absolutely bury the Diamondbacks.
5-game series in LA in 4 days again.
And there's a great chance for them to absolutely bury the Diamondbacks the way they just finished burying the Dodgers.
Giants.
The Giants.
Well, D-backs had a hand in that too.
Well, the D-backs helped, but I mean, losing 8 in a row to the Dodgers kind of really
Yeah, we can
put a
relate.
spin on that. So, if the Diamondbacks play even close to 500 ball in the last month of the season, I will be pleasantly surprised, maybe even a little bit shocked. But if they do manage to do that, they aren't finishing in the bottom 6.
76 wins if they do that, by the way. I did the math while you were talking. Because that'd be that'd be 10 under.
And that would be well above the win total that I had guessed for this season. So,
Winning season still technically possible.
yeah, we're not going to go there.
Well, 23 loss. We were 23 losses away from that prediction going going
It's gonna happen, okay? It's gonna happen.
They only need to win 22 games to beat my preseason prediction. And that's very doable. They're in a soft spot of the schedule right now. Rockies, Pirates, Rockies. If you want to see progress, they should go 7-3 against them.
All right. Well, gentlemen, it's been great. And I'll talk to you all the next time we have something to cover.
Good weekend, guys.
All right. So if you're watching here on YouTube, make sure to click that subscribe button. Cheesy subscriber. Where did I put it? Yeah. Make sure to click the like button, subscribe. AZ Snake Pit. For all your Diamondbacks coverage. So anyway, thanks everyone for watching. We'll be back maybe at who knows when. Obviously, maybe when the season comes to an end. We'll have a little bit more clarity of where they'll be in 2023.